regular monthly meeting on the Sebastopol Inn for Project Homekey. I'll just give it another minute and let people join before we get started. You should be able to see the agenda on the screen. We don't have a presentation. We'll do some introductions, provide a brief update, and then most of the time it's devoted to your questions.
Yeah.
All right. And with that, let's get started. So thank you everyone for joining, and we'll kick it off with our introductions. And I will hand it off to Chair Linda Hopkins to say a few words before we get started.
I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. This is really part of our ongoing commitment to community engagement. We did also have a couple of meetings last week on the topic, one with the Sebastopol City Council Housing Ad Hoc, and then one with sort of the direct neighbors of the project. And so I do see some familiar faces who attended a similar meeting last week as well. Really here just to listen and to answer any questions and to provide you with a brief update on the project and sort of the status of the work at Sebastopol Inn. So thank you all so much for joining with us, and I apologize, but I am going to have to jump off at 11:30 for another meeting, so I'll be here for an hour, but have to jump off at that point. So Rakesh, I don't know if I should introduce the fabulous Michelle, who I have just been really lucky to get to know a little bit better. Not only has she been fantastic in her work at the Sebastopol and extremely responsive. Whenever we've sent out an email, we get one, and it feels like sometimes within seconds of seeing it. But she has also been really critically involved in vaccination implementation. So she's been wearing many hats in Sonoma County lately, and I hope that you will enjoy working with her as much as I have. So Michelle, I guess I'll hand it over to you, if that's okay, to give an update.
Hi, I'm Michelle with DEMA. I'm the owner. Everything Sebastopol Inn, from our point of view in operations, is going very well. I look forward to your feedback. We've got 14 people moved in as of now and 4 scheduled coming through this weekend, 1 today and possibly 3 on Saturday. That is where we are at right now. I look forward to your questions.
All right, and with that, I think, if you could just introduce yourself before we get to your questions, and then we'll have the introductions done. So if you want to raise your hand, we'd be happy to start answering questions.
I know this isn't a shy group, so don't make me start calling on all of you. I know someone will raise their hand.
Oliver, ask you to unmute.
Yeah, I'm just a bit astounded that there's like nothing here. There's just a whole bunch of overpaid people sitting around saying, any questions? What's going on?
Hey, Amy, I have a question for you.
Well, really, I can answer that. The purpose of this meeting was to be responsive to the community, to answer any questions or to hear any concerns from the community. So we are here to listen to you and to answer questions about the project. I have received multiple briefings on this project. I have also heard directly from, the Sebastopol City Interim Police Chief. There has not been any report of, increased crime or sort of upticks in calls as pertaining to the Sebastopol Inn project. I have not received, I've received hardly any complaints to my office regarding the project. The main one was regarding, potential trash on the Sebastopol or near the Gerardo Trail. And that was immediately forwarded over to Michelle, who responded promptly. And so I think that we don't have a lot to report because there hasn't been a lot to report. We are moving forward with implementation, but really this is about listening to you and answering your questions. So if you have actual substantive questions, would love to hear that. So
well, I have to say I'm a little astounded, Kate, that we've got, sorry, Linda, that we have all these people have stopped in their busy working day. And I know you're busy as well, but this is very unstructured. There's a lot of questions that have been going backwards and forwards by email. The most important one is probably compensation for business owners and also for the 2 people on the Sebastopol Council who are now working on this project, apparently for no money. I was expecting something around sort of architecture and so on. Not everything's going great. And any questions?
Well, we actually had that meeting directly with the neighbors last week. So we actually had a conversation around fencing, also around design review with respect to going through the City of Sebastopol's design review process for any structural changes being made to the site. So we are working directly with adjacent neighbors and business owners and property owners, but that is a different conversation than the one that we're having today, which is just answering general community questions and hearing directly from the community. So it sounds like your feedback is that you'd like more structure going forward, which we hear and which we can consider for future meetings.
I see. Well, that's astounding.
So Linda, I'll step in for a minute, or I'll let Ray. Go ahead, Ray.
And it would be really helpful if we can use the raise hand function through the participants list. That kind of helps us track who's in line and waiting. So I don't know if that's possible, but it sounds like we've got two folks wanting to jump in now.
Go ahead, Ray.
Ray, you might be on mute. You appear to be unmuted, but we're not hearing you. So I don't know if you have a double mute going on your phone or something.
If not, we can come back to you, Ray. I have Dr. Laura Pollock.
Okay. So Linda, I apologize. It says you said that you had a meeting with the neighbors. I consider myself one of the neighbors. I was not invited to that meeting. Did I miss one?
I thought that you were on the invite list, but that you were unable to attend. I recall because we actually did have a conversation specifically about your business and if there was an ability to financially support or utilize your services, but you weren't there. So I do acknowledge that. Let me double check and make sure that you were on the invite list, but I believe you were. I don't know, Leo, do you have any recollection?
I can pull it up. I also thought that we had included you, Dr. Laura.
Yeah, I'm terribly disappointed. I thought that that's what this meeting was today. So that's unfortunate. So I'm not quite sure what to say because I'm coming as a neighbor and business owner. And so it sounds like I'm not at the right meeting today.
So what I have is that you were invited to the meeting that took place on January 14th from 1 p.m. to 1:45, and the email address that it was sent to was laura@drlaurapolak.com. Is that
That's correct. I'm not sure how that didn't happen. So sorry.
I'm really sorry about that.
Yep.
We will make sure that we're definitely still sending it to that email address in the future. And I don't know if it maybe check your spam filter or something like that. I'm so sorry that you weren't able to make
That's
it. But
okay.
we talked about you in a good way of saying this is one of the businesses we need to support and would love to follow up with you directly on that.
Great. Well, I will just take a moment and say a couple of concerns. And Michelle, specifically, I'm wondering why, I noticed at other sites too, why the Sebastopol Inn sign is still up. Is there going to be a change of signage? I know the front, the signage changed. And the other question I had, and it's kind of a silly one, but there was one incident where the fire department had to come, and that's okay. I expect that to happen, but they happened to park facing right into the building, so that it was very disturbing to the clients here. So I don't know if we can direct when things happen to not be, I don't know, to be parked in front of your building, and I don't know if that's even possible, but that would be two of the things I just have questions about.
So Linda, I can respond to your fire department call. That was actually not a call for the Sebastopol Inn. It was for actually on the trail in the back. So that may be why they parked there instead for access to get down there quicker.
Got it. Thank you.
And as far as the sign, that would be something for Paul as far as constructual. I'm not in charge of bringing down the sign.
Okay.
And unfortunately, Paul from the CDC was not able to join us today. He did attend the meeting last week where we were talking about some of those physical infrastructure changes. So we can definitely circle back with Paul on the sign issue, but thanks for bringing that up.
So I have a question from Ray in the chat. And her question is, comment is, she's requesting that these meetings be held in the evening, either at 5 or 6, and I've heard that from a number of different folks. I know the reason we did this in the morning was to accommodate the multiple schedules for staff. we don't want to do a meeting where people aren't, the right folks to answer your questions aren't there. It can be challenging at times. We also don't want to space these out. We want to do them, keep them regular on a monthly basis. But, Supervisor Hopkins, I believe we can probably go forward and do these in the evening if that's something the group would like.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that feedback, and we are happy to schedule in a way that accommodates participation.
I would just add, I mean, Rahish and I did have that conversation before setting this, and we had considered alternating because there were some people who specifically preferred a daytime meeting. Our meeting with Gravenstein Station and the other neighbors was during the day and had full attendance. I mean, another thing we could consider is just to try to reduce the total number of meetings, and then maybe we can get everybody on the same page in the same room versus being concerned about whether we're repeating or not. I mean, I think there's different ways that we can structure this to make it work better. I would just add, from our last meetings, we were hearing mostly, honestly, quite positive feedback. And, I see some people on who can correct me if that's not accurate, but we really want to just try to find ways to work together and to address the specific concerns you have. So, Oliver, if we circle back to you later, like if you want to focus on the actual problems, if you're observing specific problems or have real concerns about a particular area, we want to address them because we were, honestly, we exited the other meetings feeling like really positive about our ability to kind of work constructively with the neighbors and that there were real progress being made and that we weren't hearing as many starting pains as we anticipated.
Can I answer that? Can I speak in response to that?
Rahish, can Oliver go, or is there anyone with their hand up already?
I don't see anyone with their hand, and I'll give.
I'm just so concerned. I kind of made time in a fairly busy day to attend this meeting, and it's completely loosey-goosey. And you apparently have had a meeting which you didn't tell anybody about, despite all of these claims of transparency and everything's going wonderfully well. I know Maguire had said to you in relation to Santa Rosa with the Azure Hotel, the Hotel Azure, that you should have the meetings in the evening. This is all incredibly loose. It's like you're saying everything's going great, guys. We've had a meeting that you didn't attend. It went really well. Any questions? It's not good enough.
I mean, Oliver, what are you missing? Would you like us to pull that presentation and run through it? I guess if you tell us specifically like what information that you're looking for, or do you want every meeting to always have kind of an introduction with kind of a recap so anybody new can learn what the project is and who the population being served is? I know you've been in so many of our meetings. I mean, we don't want to waste your time either.
Well, you are wasting our time because this is very unsubstantial. You're asking me to fish around and kind of organize a meeting for you, which you haven't organized yourselves. It's as simple as that.
Respectfully, Oliver, I really do feel that this is not a productive way for us to discuss. You just are making accusations of the meeting being loosey-goosey, but what we are trying to do here is to have the folks who are directly accountable to you available to answer questions or to hear your concerns. And if your only concern is that we didn't have a presentation, that is something that we can take into account and provide at future meetings. But to Leo's point, this is a group that has been through a number of meetings at which we presented all of that information. So we were sort of assuming that we were starting with a foundation of knowledge from those prior meetings, and that we could then, if there have been questions or concerns since the implementation of the project, that we could respond and we could actually have the service provider say, oh, I haven't heard that concern, but I can look into it with my staff. Or I could say, oh, it sounds like there's something that was unaddressed. I'll take that back to the CDC and Department of Health Services and work on that. So I would really appreciate it if we could actually focus on the substance of the implementation. Have you seen any problems with implementation? Are there concerns? Are there questions about the way the project is rolling out? That's what we've got a team of folks assembled here today to answer those questions.
Okay, so a couple of
It was not intended to be sort of a regurgitated presentation of all the presentations we've done before.
So if I could just, I won't dominate the meeting. I'll be quiet in a second. But I did attend the Santa Rosa Azure Hotel meetings. There was a pretty detailed presentation by Barbie Robinson and architects and people about exactly what you're doing with that particular place that you've commanded.
I can answer that. That was the first meeting we had with the Azura. The second meeting we had with the Azura, which is also available, was very similar to this. We, in fact, just gave a very brief update, just telling folks how many people have moved in, and we just took questions.
So I'm a citizen of downtown Sebastopol. I don't have any skin in the game, as I've said previously, except I'm very unhappy with the way the overarching homeless strategy is being run, but that's a topic for a separate conversation. I think
We're looking for questions here, Oliver.
Yeah, no. So my specific question is what was addressed at the last meeting, which is compensation for the members of the council who are actually devoting time to working on this project, the 2 people, and more importantly, the businesses in Gravenstein Station and the long-term TOT tax implications of this, the loss of property taxes, all of those things. I mean, it'd be good to get some answers on that. And I won't say anything more in this meeting now because I'm clearly getting under your skin.
So I guess I'm not super clear on the questions are, number one, will there be compensation for the Sebastopol City Council members who are members of the ad hoc committee that's working on it? Is that the question?
Yes.
And then the second question was, I heard a question with respect to what is the plan for the TOT mitigation? And what was the other question?
The other question was compensation for the local businesses who've seen their revenue dry up with the hotel being closed down.
Okay, so I can answer, I think that Michelle might be best equipped to answer the question about the local businesses, but I do know that there has been local purchasing already taking place from Coffee Cats. And Michelle, I don't know if you want to share your conversation with the local businesses.
So I've gone out and I've introduced myself. I've introduced myself with Dr. Pollock. Her and I had some great conversations. We're planning on meeting up hopefully soon for some tea in regards to how we could collaborate both Sebastopol Inn and what we're doing with her business as well. I think she's got some great opportunities. I've got some great opportunities for us to work together going forward in the future. I have spoken with the owner of Coffee Cats. I'm off right now in discussions with their real estate agent in order for our company to purchase Coffee Cats from them and incorporate that into our community service that we're giving back to Sebastopol. So I'm supposed to meet, I believe his name is Bob. I've gotten all the required paperwork from him, either Tuesday or Thursday of this week, and to hopefully go forward with the purchase of Coffee Cats.
That's astounding that DEMA is buying Coffee Cats for the county.
No, I'm buying it for DEMA. However, we're going to use it in this project and utilize it to give back to all of our community members.
That's surreal. Well, that's the kind of thing that'd be kind of useful to announce at the top of a meeting like this, frankly. I mean, that's a major thing that's happened, which hasn't been revealed until I prodded and poked.
Well, I think, Oliver, the reason that I haven't made a major announcement is because the purchase isn't solidified. Okay. Therefore, I want to make sure that I'm giving complete and accurate information to you in these meetings. And so I can just tell you that that is our plan now, and we are meeting with Bob this week.
Got it. Thank you. What other businesses are the county planning on buying locally?
Well, I don't believe that the county's buying any businesses. This is coming from DEMA, the business that I own personally. I'm purchasing this business. I'm purchasing this.
Right. So, okay.
To answer the other questions that you asked, it is not a policy of the county to compensate other elected officials for their participation in meetings. There are certain regional organizations, JPAs, joint power authorities, that do compensate officials for meetings that they attend. Largely, those are meetings that are held out of county, and so it's partly to compensate folks for the driving time as well. But it is not a policy of the county of Sonoma to do so. And then with respect to the TOT mitigation, I do believe that it has been discussed in prior meetings that we have provided some offsetting funding specifically to invest in homeless services to the city of Sebastopol. And we are continuing to work with the Community Development Commission on the implementation of those funds. And the goal actually there is to strengthen the local safety net, to your point previously, Oliver, about the challenges that downtown Sebastopol has faced with respect to homelessness and the challenges that we have faced throughout the county. We are working very hard to develop a regional homelessness response infrastructure in West County. And we're hoping that the funding the city of Sebastopol will play a key role in that. It will have sort of three different elements. Number one is the street outreach and the sort of interface with the existing homeless community. Part of homeless services is developing relationships with the unsheltered folks so that when they are ready to come in, there's a relationship of trust that you can actually encourage folks to come in and accept those services. The second is sort of a stabilization element, which is that we are expanding and extending the contract at Alliance Redwoods. This is actually for the first time really giving us a regionally focused location in West County to take some of those folks, if they are willing to come off the streets to get stabilized. And we've actually seen quite a bit of success at Alliance Redwoods. It is very remote, right? It's out there just in Camp Meeker, and yet
Linda,
being surrounded by beauty and with wraparound supportive services has really been very, very, very beneficial to the population. So they kind of get stabilized there. They have the supportive services. Many of them have been able to, get sober or start seeking help for those kinds of concerns, get the mental health resources that they need. And then they're able to move into a more permanent supportive housing location. And Sebastopol Inn is providing that destination that we're able to place folks. And we are enacting, which is something that I've been pushing for all along, a West County prioritization for these homeless services. And so that means that we are prioritizing residents who are unsheltered within the city of Sebastopol or in the surrounding environs to really make sure that those folks get help first, so that the community that's accepting the services is also reaping the benefit of providing those services by seeing less, unsheltered folks in the and around the community. So hopefully that answers.
No, it doesn't answer the question at all. You transferred from my question about TOT and property taxes over, let's say, a 30-year period, which is the ownership period of the building, and then did a self-congratulatory thing about how great your homeless strategies are, which has nothing to do with this conversation. So I'd like to know about the long-term TOT and particularly property tax loss to Sebastopol, which has some pretty serious budget problems going forward.
We negotiated sort of an offset directly between the CAO and the city manager of Sebastopol, and that is what we arrived at.
So just 1 year, little $300,000 payment and call it quits, is that it?
It's actually, that actually covers multiple years of the TOT loss. And I also would argue that there is a benefit to the city of Sebastopol and getting unsheltered residents off their streets, and providing permanent supportive housing for folks. So it depends on sort of where you're placing your values, I guess. But I would also welcome, I know that we have 2 representatives from the city of Sebastopol who might want to comment on how that's worked.
Okay, well, that's the sort of thing that would be nice to be presented more formally in this meeting.
So we did formally present this at the city council meeting.
Yeah, Rohesh, maybe I can make
yes,
a couple
go
comments.
ahead,
thank you. First of all, we did negotiate $375,000 from the county. The average TOT that we were getting from the inn was around $83,000 a year. So it actually does cover multiple years. As to the point of compensating Patrick and I for being here, that would be really swell if I got compensated for all the meetings I go to on my own time. For the $300 a month I get for being on the city council, but it kind of comes with the territory. It's our job as electeds to participate in what we can participate in. And we participate in a huge amount of cross-jurisdictional meetings that we do not get compensated for. So I could go, if you want to listen to all the meetings I go to, I could tell you sometime. As far as the compensation for businesses, I think I'm actually very encouraged and excited, as I believe are the owners of Coffee Cats, about the purchase of Coffee Cats by DEMA. I think one of the things that I said at one of our previous meetings was, when there's a change of use in a piece of property and you own a business, then especially when that is a property that kind of dominates an area, then if it were a private business, a private use change, you would pivot. You have to adapt your business. And I've owned businesses since I was 23 years old. And I've had a lot of changes in in usage or changes in environment or changes in the marketplace. And I think, the county purchased the property and they changed the use, but we can't, the county can't compensate private businesses because of there was a use change in a property that's next door to other people's businesses. But what we have done and what Supervisor Hopkins and Councilmember Slater and I have done is to try and really work with the county to encourage them to create relationships with the businesses that are close by to try and mitigate or reverse any losses in revenue. So already there is a relationship between the new use and coffee cats. They're buying coffee. And on top of that, it looks like there may even be a purchase of the business. But we've been trying to encourage the CDC and DEMA to make sure that some of our local businesses are contractors with the new managers of Sebastopol Inn, which is DEMA, to try and have them be purchasing services from our local businesses. So it's a change in, they weren't buying coffee from, when it was the Sebastopol Inn, the Sebastopol Inn wasn't buying coffee from Coffee Cat. So, okay, that changed. Things change and sometimes we have to adapt. I do think it is costing, homeless issues are costing the city a lot of money. Apart from the whole moral and human issue of homelessness. In addition to that, it is costing the city quite a bit of money to deal with these problems. So we are hoping that some of the mitigation money that we're getting from the county will help us to be better deal with and better manage homeless issues in our city. And that the existence of there being a permanent supportive housing for people who have been homeless gives us another option, gives us an outlet for fixing the problem. So that would be a hard number to measure, but it is part of the mix of solving this problem financially, is creating the infrastructure so that we can solve these problems and have less expense to law enforcement and other kinds of expenses that are being incurred by the city because of these problems. So it's a building block in what needs to be a lot of different solutions.
All right. Thank you, Oliver. We'll move on. Are there any other questions from anyone else?
Since nobody else is saying anything, I'd just like to see a lot more facts and statistics to back up some of this stuff, because it's all very kind of feel good and vaguely solving problems. And DEMA, which has been in business for less than a year, is now managing the hotel for the foreseeable future and is now buying the local coffee shop. It's all very, very loose. I'd love to see in a future meeting a lot more concrete detail and specific information.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that feedback, Oliver. And one thing that I might mention, if you're not familiar with it, there is an annual census of unsheltered residents throughout Sonoma County called the Homeless Point and Time Count. And you might consider looking at that. It sort of shows a historic record of the number of unsheltered folks over time. I know that's not exactly what you're asking for today, but if you do like data and you want to dive into trends in unsheltered populations in various regions of the county over time, might be worth browsing that. That's available publicly on the CDC website for years going back. And you can actually see that we have seen an increase in the Sebastopol area over time, which is one of the reasons that I think it's really critical to invest in infrastructure to address that problem, but might be worthy of consideration.
Yeah, you did actually suggest I look at that in November last year, and I came back and pointed out that the grand jury findings last year were very contradictory of that census, which I would argue is driving, justifying a lot of what we're talking about today.
Okay, any other questions from from anyone else?
This is Catherine Couch at Series Community Project, and I just want to acknowledge the incredible work that so many people have done over such a short period of time to bring this project forward. And Michelle, we haven't met, but Mary Maddox said I should reach out to you, so I'm happy to see you on the call. And I know this is a whole new way of doing things, and it's challenging, but I am really grateful to the leadership of the city and Linda and Michelle and everyone who's worked to make this happen. We have reached out multiple times to talk about medically tailored meals and medical nutrition for the population there, who all, I understand, have chronic health conditions. And so I just want to continue to say that we're a resource to support the health of the population at the Village Inn. And if there's anything that we can do to help, we just want to be available.
Thank you very much. I look forward to speaking with you, Catherine. And yes, Mary's amazing, isn't she?
I
If you'd like
believe,
to ask a question, please raise your hand, the raise hand function. Oh, go ahead, Mayor Glass.
Rahish, I believe that Ray had a question about the continued employment of people. I think it's in the chat room. I don't know if you're seeing that. She had a question about the continued employment of people at Copycats.
Will DEMA consider current Copycat staff to be employed there?
Absolutely intend to keep everybody who's employed there right now to continue employment there. I've also spoken, I believe Debbie's the name of the owner, and I would like her to stay on as well for a year so that she can help us transition into owning Copycats. She wants to retire though, just so everybody knows. I'm begging her to stay.
I have another question from Kelly Meager. What other support services are needed for the homeless in Sebastopol, and can the other empty spaces in the Gravenstein Station be used for them, such as the caboose store and the chocolate store?
Rahish, is that something that you want to sort of tackle? I mean, I think that that's honestly a broader community conversation in terms of, what are the unmet needs or.
I believe Tina Rivera, our Assistant Director, is here, and maybe she could talk about what sort of services in the future may be added, maybe after the COVID period and we go into interim housing.
Yeah, and I would, I would say that really is a broader conversation with that would probably require more analysis as we take a look at, what's happening in the Sebastopol area. Absolutely, housing needs are being addressed, more wraparound services, more outreach within the Sebastopol community, things of that nature. But I think as we take a deeper dive and take a look at, just some additional analysis, working with the local providers in the area, things of that nature, and just kind of collectively do some additional analysis with respect to those needs. We'll be able to lay this out in a more, and frame things in a way that we can take a look at what really is needed in Sebastopol. That's, I think, for a future conversation.
Thank you. If you have a question, please use the raise hand feature or raise it. I have a question from Dr. Laura. Is DEMA working with Community Market for food? Again, are we supporting local business?
Our current contractor for the food right now that is being catered to the Sebastopol Inn is not the Community Market.
Thank you. I have another question from Brian. Go ahead, Brian. If you just unmute yourself.
Thank you, Rakesh. In one of the earlier meetings, what I noticed seemed to put most people's minds more at ease was the description we heard about the residents who are actually going to be at the inn, rather than a generic homeless title. You know, and I, for one, was quite pleased with the types of folks you're bringing in, the kinds of services they're going to need. And I do think it really helped people understand better that perhaps the negativity that first came out from the press release may not really pan out. Is there a plan in place for a more accurate, maybe updated press release that can let the public know that same information? Because I think that was the first time I'd really heard a description of the people who are going to be in that population. And I think it would really help a lot if there was that update. Thank you.
Sure, we're happy to include that information. It's just, Brian, we've had a few meetings on this and we didn't want to take up additional time. But again, these folks are over the age of 65 or have underlying health conditions that make them vulnerable to COVID. These people have worked through the housing, the continuum of care. They're ready to move in, and I'll let Michelle speak to more about who her clientele is.
I really didn't mean to ask you to repeat yourself. I just mean for the public information, because someone mentioned at one of the meetings that it was a messaging issue. Well, you know, the neighbors are not the ones doing the messaging. It's out in the paper. You know, it's out from the public and from the county. And it would be nice. I think this idea of purchasing coffee cats, I think, is fantastic. And if that might be an opportune time when it comes time for the folks who have finalized that agreement to include this kind of description again, so that the public can start reading more about who's going in there.
Our homepage website, which everyone here should have access to, I've sent the link, does have that description, but we're happy to make sure that we continue messaging that. Thank you for that feedback. And Michelle, did you want to talk about who's there and just give some examples of the type of individuals?
So the individuals that are being housed right now at the Sebastopol Inn are all individuals, as Roe stated, that are FEMA vulnerable under the qualifications for the FEMA criteria at risk for COVID. Each individual has been at one of the NCS programs prior. They've been there for an extended amount of time. They're working very hard to become productive members in the community. We have actually a couple of them that now work for me personally within our company and work at other sites because they're trying to improve and better their lives and getting full-time or employment going forward. Those are the type of individuals we have there. They're very good success stories.
Thank you.
I keep seeing in the comments over here who's supplying the food. DEMA does not do the contracting within the contracts for the caterers or any other of the wraparound services besides ours. That is for the county. They do all of the contracting within the wraparound services. So the one we have, I believe right now that is catering for us is Sol Azteca, I believe.
Right. Does anyone else have a question?
Rahesh, if there's a gap, I'm happy to just jump in and try to add some clarification on the meetings. I know that some of the comments, some people would have benefited from being at our last meeting that we had with the Gravenstein Inn neighbors. And I just wanted to give some of the background. I mean, I think that basically we've been trying to meet as regularly with the community as possible. I think months ago, Kelly with Coffee Cats, as well as some of the other Gravenstein Inn neighbors, wrote a pretty formal letter to then Mayor Slater, as well as our office. And so they were actually interested in exploring ways that we could partner, as potentially looking into job training as options. Brian, I think you were at that meeting as well, where we were basically exploring ways that the businesses could work together with the Sebastopol Inn, which was then still an idea, and we were exploring different options, and that meeting was a continuing monthly meeting. Similarly, like we've had, I think UDC-sponsored meetings with business groups as well as with nonprofits. And I think those kind of have merged into this meeting. And so going forward, since it sounds like there's a core, even in all the meetings added up, there's kind of a core group of people who are interested in this issue. And it seems like there's a lot of overlap. It's largely around businesses and quality of life around the building. So maybe we can merge all of those meetings together so that everyone has the same information. I mean, I'll double check with that other group. I mean, I think we acknowledge that Gravenstein Station being immediately next door to the site was going to have the most sort of direct nuts and bolts impacts. But, you know, I see in the chat, there's people in the Barlow who are interested. And when we were having the fencing conversation, we ended up pulling in another site next door to them as well. So we can try to integrate that into a single meeting if that's what would be most helpful. And we can kind of kick it off with kind of maybe a formal presentation that would be repetitive for some, but can make sure that everybody's on the same page. That's just my 2 cents on the meetings. But if other people have feedback or want to see something different, of course, you can let me know. I hear from many of you, and we'll just continue to work on this and to keep everyone on the same page. But there's no, you know, other motive of trying to have meetings that people are in or not. We're just trying to continue to just respond to the different constituencies that we're hearing from. And going forward, I think my plan will be to work with Rahish to try to pull it into a single meeting so that we're more streamlined and you all are hearing the same thing at the same time.
I appreciate that, Leo. And I just, about the presentation, we've heard from our group in the Hotel Lazura that they'd like less presentation. So kind of anticipating that, I wanted to keep it informal to give everyone else on the call the opportunity to ask the questions that they want without having to go through a presentation that takes up more time. But if the presentation is what's being asked for, then we can certainly develop one and present it. Right.
Yeah, I would like to vote. This is my hand up. I'd like to vote for, let's try and consolidate as much as we can. This is the 3rd meeting I have been to about the Sebastopol Inn since Thursday, which actually turns out to kind of put a dent in my schedule. But I also really appreciate all the work that staff has done and all the communication and getting, you know, the work that you have done to include the neighbors, et cetera. I'm sorry that Dr. Pollack wasn't at the meeting last week because it actually was a very collaborative meeting between the neighbors and DEMA and county staff. It turned out to be quite a positive meeting.
I see some questions in the chat about recordings. This meeting is being recorded and will be available later, and I will send that out to everyone. Do we have any other questions? I don't see any questions, so I'll turn it back to you. Anyone else from city staff or county staff would like to say anything else? If not, then you know, I think we can conclude this if that's okay. See everyone nodding their head.
I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for attending, and I do know that has been the 3rd meeting in a week on this subject. So we'll work on consolidating meetings going forward. And also, Dr. Laura, I'm so sorry that you missed that last meeting. And I don't know if you ever were able to find that email that we had sent out, but that's annoying that we know we sent it and you know you didn't get it. I'm sorry that it got lost in cyberspace. But I look forward to continuing these conversations, you know, and really the goal here is to provide a real-time feedback loop. So if there are challenges in the community, we want to hear from them, you know, from you in real time, and then have all of the folks who are there working on the project to ensure that we are held accountable and that we are responsive to your needs and to your questions and to your concerns. So, you know, I personally prefer keeping things less formal because we all sit through endless PowerPoint presentations, and we've done the PowerPoint presentation song and dance, and to try to encourage more authentic communications and just like, you know, back in the good old days when we could actually sit around a table all together and have conversations, or be in a town hall meeting where it felt a little more egalitarian. So in the interest of that, I look forward to continuing to meet, and we'll see you, I guess, next month.
Great. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Rahesh. Thank you, Leo. Thank you,
Thank
team.
you everyone for your participation.